Here we go again. Um, I want to chime in here a little bit um, and talk about why when it comes to uh, race and being Republican, in that I want to give you a quick thing about my background, a quick look into my background, why I am the way I am. People wonder, like, why am I always like distant from black people? Why am I always yelling at them when they, like, if I'm on Facebook? Just now, I had it out with a girl on Facebook because she got on there. I put a preacher on there. He was saying some things about the riots and that they needed to stop. And she comes on there with, oh, well, all this other stuff. And she's supposed to be a Christian, like me, a black Christian like me. And she was just, putting something into it that wasn't going there. She trying to act like the white man that was preaching the message was being a racist for standing up and saying that the riots need to stop. And she didn't mention the word riot in anything she said. She mentioned a bunch of other stuff, but she didn't mention anything about the riots. That's what the dude was talking about. Okay? She don't know the difference between a riot and a protest. Um, but anyway, um, wow, this is video and people sending me dumb messages. Okay. Anyway, what I want to talk to you about is, first of all, um, what has happened to me, why I am the way I am. When I was born in 1966. Now, from what I understand, I was just a baby, and the, you know, it was supposed to be a horrible time back then for black folks. And the further back in time you go, it was supposed to be a horrible time for black folks. But I was born in 1966, and I do remember coming up as a child, dealing with some racist kids who, especially even in Christian school, um, where their parents didn't teach them better than that. They thought that, oh, if a black guy doesn't come in there acting like a thug, beat him up. They had that attitude, like you're either a tough black guy or you're a black guy for us to beat up on. And I've met white people like that throughout my life, starting off when I was a kid. And they were always, though, this is where it's important to look at the numbers. They were always like 1 or 2% of the population of any school or any community. And people don't pay no attention. It's like, oh, one white guy. Okay? He gets, it's everybody that's black's problem. I mean, one white guy can do so much damage by, showing his true colors, or whether he was trying to be a prank or whatever he was doing. He was only like 1 or 2%. You know. Anyway, my mom, coming up in church camp. As I was coming up in church camp, my mom sent me to church camp. Church camp was all white. Now, I got black friends today that'll say they went. I didn't see you there, okay? I don't remember seeing any of y'all there. I remember y'all coming and saying, I don't want to be around all these white people, and going home, okay? I was the only one there when I was there in my time. I was the only one there, and there were other people who said that they went, and they went in a different time, and it was different for them than it was for me. There was a lot of hate in there, and I'm not going to say it wasn't. I wasn't there. They said there was a lot of hate and there was a lot of violence. There was a lot of fighting. No wonder these youth leaders were prepared for anything. But during my time of church camp was in the early 80s, down to 1986. That was the last time I was there. Excuse me. And I just had a wonderful time. And again, within my last 2 or 3 years of church camp, I ran into another boy who felt that he needed to show me up in front of the white people. We got up there on that mountain, and after I got done whooping his behind, he realized that, wait a minute, they wasn't going to let him beat me up anyway. They wasn't going to chime in with him. They were all my friends. They were all my white friends. They were not going to let him. You know what I'm saying? If they had his back, they would have all jumped on me at one time. But actually, they just wanted. They knew because I actually took karate lessons. Okay, so they were actually, the joke was on him. Okay, the joke was on him. Hopefully I won't have to do a part 2 of this because I got a lot to get out of here. But the joke was on him. He went up there and got his butt kicked. And it was cool. It was fine. You know, nobody got hurt. We didn't have to explain to nobody why we had bruises or nothing like that. Just boys being boys, you know. What I didn't like about it is I knew, like every black person knows, that if I had been white, it would have been different. Okay? But I was singled out because I was black, and coming from the part of whatever city / ghetto he came from, he felt that, oh, I'm here with all these white people and I'm the only black person here. I'm outnumbered. As a Christian and as a person who'd been to this same campground probably about 9 times within my history of it, and being the only one there probably about 7 of those 9 times, okay, that was black, okay. These were all my friends. I did not feel uncomfortable around them. I did not feel unsafe around them. We loved each other. We were Christians, and you could tell there at the camp, the Christians versus those that were coming in who were just letting their kids go to camp. And these kids brought these secular, unforgiving, hateful, racist, pagan, you know, mindsets with them. They were there to get laid and there to be racist. You know, the only time they weren't either talking about who had the nicest butt or look at that black boy coming over here is when we were playing softball, football, or basketball. And then, you know, you couldn't play basketball and be 5'3.5" like me, because then the white boys would go in there and they would try to act like, oh, it doesn't matter that I'm only 5'3.5". Okay, I'm supposed to be able to jump and dunk like, you know, we see on TV, or I ain't a real brother, you know. And black folks don't think that I've been through any of this stuff. I've been through it. I'm still going through it. But my mom, you know, in my childhood, my mom had no problem with, you know, my childhood. When I look today and see how black people act and how some white people act, I just can't understand, like, everything from my childhood, coming up in high school, high school, Christian elementary school, Christian middle school, government, secular high school, middle school. I was only in Christian school uh, once in grade school and once in middle school, and then me and my mom couldn't afford it anymore. We moved to more further into the inner city of Pittsburgh, closer to the inner city of Pittsburgh, and that's when more troubles begin to really corrupt. And that's when I seen a side of black people that I did not know existed. See, when I was living in what when I was living in McKeesport, what today might be a ghetto, but back then it was something else. It wasn't the richest neighborhood or the highest class neighborhood, but it was a good neighborhood. Um, I had all kinds of friends. I had Spanish friends. I had uh, black friends. I had white friends. I had, uh, and my mom, like we would travel from McKeesport to the inner ghetto of Pittsburgh. It might have been less a ghetto back then than it is now. Um, Homewood, okay, where my grandmother lived on Race Street, and we would go there, and we would spend our summers with my grandmother, and everything was different. The music was different because all they listened to was, I had a cousin that I grew up with, my cousin Kenny. All he liked was rap music. Once rap music came out, that was it. No other music mattered to him but rap music. Um, and my cousins, all the girls, they loved like Michael and Cameo and Earth, Wind and Fire and like that. And I was cool with that. I just kind of like was shocked for a second there with the rap music. Like when it first came out, I was like, "Is that legal? Can you really put that on a record? Is that really legal?" And and now once it became legal, man, it just like took over and the culture with it and everything. But anyway, my mom had no problem. My mom never sat me down to tell me the birds and bees of racism, is the point I'm getting at. She never sat me down. She never felt she needed to. And I've heard her complain about white people sometimes. Not as much as other people in my family. Not as much as other black friends of the family. But she had her problems with white people, and white people had their problems with her. But my mom had a lot of white friends, and my mom would send me here for the weekend, and send me there for the weekend, and people would say, "Oh, send us your son," So I'd go over there, and you know, one time I stayed over a friend's house, and he only lived like I spent the weekend over there, and he stayed across the street in that little neighborhood across the street. And his family, they weren't the poorest people you ever want to meet. They was pretty, they were, what I'm saying, like I went, and it wasn't just his family, but there was other white families too where I stayed, and it was like, the difference there. There's a big difference there. Like it's like, you send me over your house, you automatically got enough for me, you know, or you automatically have enough money to take me out with your kid, you know. I mean, and some of these kids were lonely. They needed a friend, and my mom sent me over there to these white people's house. And their parents were so happy for me to be there because they needed their boy needed a friend. They was waiting on me, man. They had food ready for me. And they never said to me, "Oh, do you want chicken? Or do you want, can we get you some McDonald's? Can we get you some orange soda? Or, do we need to get ribs?" You know what I'm saying? They didn't worry about, um, stuff like that. They just knew that I was a young boy, and they figure like a young boy, like their son, and there was times they put stuff on my plate. I said, "What is it? What is it?" And they explained it to me. I said, "Okay, I like this part. I don't know what that is over there. I don't know what that is. Whatever that green stuff is. Okay, I don't know what that is. But you know, um, I got used to hearing. What are they saying here? I got used to um just being cool with people and these white people, and I got used to I could expect when I go into a white person's house, I got used to the smell. I ain't trying to be funny. I ain't trying to criticize. Got used to the smell. It was either the smell of spaghetti. And I don't know. Black folks cook their spaghetti different than white folks, but there was that spaghetti smell. If they were having spaghetti, it was all over the neighborhood. My goodness, and it was like really boiled. I mean, it was like black folks, they like fry their ground beef and really really fry. They put some blackness on it. And the noodles we you know what I'm saying, but in the sauce that we use, like I think it was the sauce. It's like all these white people use the same sauce. I don't know, but I got used to going over um to white people's house, and I could either smell the dog, the cat, or I could smell the spaghetti. Okay. And there were some white folks that they ate more spaghetti than they ate anything else. I mean, it was always spaghetti season for them. Anyway, moving on. Coming up in school, as a youngster, the white teachers I had, um, some of them, they were very hands on with me. It wasn't like they didn't like their jobs like a lot of these teachers today. I mean, um, there were some teachers that they would when they tried to show me stuff, and they were so friendly and so nice, and I'm not about white teachers. Um, I could smell um, their I could smell their perfume. I could smell their sweat. I could smell their hairspray. You know, um, one teacher I had, I remember very vividly, very perfectly, how, and I don't know if this is with white skin or if it's just with certain skin types or sweat mixed with it or whatever, but her hands smelt like pencil all the time. And I mean, she would just touch me, you know. I mean, she touched me here, she touched me here, you know. Um, if I had something on my face, she'd wipe it off, you know. I mean, and I could smell, her scent every time she came around me, and I got used to her. Like if she was behind me, I knew it was her. There's about two or three teachers sometimes in a class, depending on what you was learning back then, and they can't afford to pay that kind of money out today. But when I was in Christian school, and not only that, in secular school too. I mean, sometimes we had two teachers there, and they were both females. And you know, I knew which one was standing behind me because one, her hand smells like pencil, and I mean it filled the room like I don't know what she. Let me go. Let me get off that subject. I don't know what's up with the pencils, man, but her hand smelled like pencil all the time. And the other one, she used to wear so much perfume if you left the door open, you could tell she was coming up the hall. I mean, but and they were both, nice ladies and that, and they never ever treated me with like they didn't want to teach me or that I was a problem in the class just because I was, a black guy, one of them, or the only one that was black in the class. Sometimes I was the only one in the class. Same, just like camp. I was the only one in class that was black. Let me tell you something, being I'm not going to be able to get all this out in one video. It's the black folks that have enough black folks around them that hate white people the most, or that get into the whole problematics with white folks. I mean, coming up, in the suburbs in McKeesport, and moving to Homewood, I seen the transition. I seen the difference between black folks and white folks. And, white folks have their issues. And if I want to compare my own family, I would say, yeah, well, my family don't have this problem and don't have that problem. But when you look at the black community as a whole, you can't say that. Because every family's not the same. Regardless of what you think, black people, every black family's not the same. You cannot trust everybody in your black community. You can't do what you won't do with white folks. You cannot do it with other black folks. All black folks don't wash their hands before they touch your food. And I've met a lot of white people that don't wash their hands before they touch food. I met a lot of white people that do. I met a lot of white people that are high maintenance. They don't touch their face, their hand. They don't scratch or do nothing. When they're cooking, they can stand there for hours and be in a conversation and never touch their nose or never pull nothing off their tongue or nothing. They just, or never, and they always smelling good, smelling like soap, baby powder, whatever, And I met black people, though, that are just the opposite. That are funky and stinky. Don't know how to bathe. When I was back in middle school, I remember a guy who had lice. And, like lice in a lot of schools, because of the lack of pigment in white skin, like white people get it easier, like white kids. If white parents don't constantly keep their kids' hair washed, they'll get lice very easily, and it'll spread through the school. Okay, that's just a fact. That's not putting down white people. I've been around it enough. But I remember one black guy in my entire life who had lice, and he spread it. And I remember even white folks thought it was a white person. They immediately started checking all the white kids. Okay, because they know that that's usually how it's done. But no, this time it was a black kid who had the lice. And I remember he had a big old hole, big old bald spot in his head with his young self, where, that's how bad it was. He had the worm and that. It was eating, his mom, and I found out later the poor guy didn't have a family. He was homeless. He was living in somebody's basement or something like that, and he didn't even have parents. His parents, I don't know where his parents were. I don't know, but he just, I don't know. But Racism yesterday versus today. And I'll get more into this in the next video. The title of this video is I Choose to Evolve. And what I was just explaining to you about my testimony, and I'll give a little bit more of that. I'll squeeze a little bit more of that in on the next video. I choose to evolve because I know the difference. And I know the difference within the years and the time that we're living in. And I know who's the fault, who's to blame. I choose to evolve as an American to become more American and less worried about a culture that, you know, like us African Americans per se, that might have lost our culture to slavery. So, you know, there were some black people that did some great things, and we posted their pictures, and we put them in high regard. We put them in books, and you know what I mean? And some of them are in the White House. You know, their pictures are in the White House. Some of them, their pictures are in historical museums across the country and stuff like that. But what is black culture? What is black culture? Every time that I've tried to kick it, so to speak, you know, get in there with my people, knowing that I also have you know, the idea of being what's that word? Used to the company of white people, used to being in their homes and you know, sometimes even up to the point of fighting and arguing like brothers and sisters in the same house with white people. Okay? And being able to hug and forgive and forget before the end of the day. I've had those relationships with both blacks and whites. And it just baffles me. My question is this the situation like today that we're in, is it a matter of white people continuing on the racism of yesterday? Or is it black folks taking on a new culture, or taking a culture that was falling apart and tearing it apart further? You know, I'm not sure what's going on here. But what do you think? What do you think is the reason that we're still some things, and some things are just worse than what they were in the past? Well, we'll talk about that in the next video. And I have 3 other items I want to talk about here. We'll do that in the next video. I promise you I'll get it all done in the next video, hopefully. Okay, God bless you. I'll talk to you then.